Perfect. There. So we're now starting. Okay. All right. So let's go right into our agenda for the day. All right, so let's get the ball rolling with our agenda for this evening. So to start off, we would go over our timeline of success. Basically, the overview of how to start your recruitment era from start to finish. So starting with what can you do now, before recruitment starts, then having what can you do during, how to prepare for recruitment, and then ending off with what can you do after recruitment, how can you make it better, and stuff like that. So starting off with timeline, what can you do before recruitment and stuff. All right, so basically, what to do in advance will make prepping for recruitment less stressful and easier for you as recruits. We'll start from the top. In order to have recruitment, you need to have people to recruit. So if people don't know who you are or what you represent, they most likely won't show up. Oh, sorry, sir. Can you go back one more slide for me, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So sorry. Oh, you're fine.
Sorry
You're
about
fine.
that.
Awesome. So we'll start from the top. So in order to have recruitment, you'll need to have people to recruit. So if people don't know who you are or what you represent, they most likely won't show up, especially if you haven't tried to make connection with them, basically. This leads to the importance of establishing connections and building your network beforehand. So on to establishing connections. One more slide. Thank you. Sorry, my internet's a little bit slow today. So establishing connections. Now that we aren't doing smoke signals anymore, there are a number of platforms and resources that you can use to reach out to potential recruits, starting with social media. You have platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so many more that can be used to make those broad connections and engage your potential recruits. Posting your flyers, events, and brothers in positive lights can really grow your audience and build their awareness about you. So make sure that you use campus hashtags or handles when posting, because it can help capture attention from different potentials. Social media also allows you to have more one-on-one conversations with other people who think you might be interested. So if you notice somebody who's continuously engaging with your post, liking your post, don't be afraid to slide in their DMs and try to make make a more personal connection and see what their mindset's at. And if they are showing interest, try to take the next step. Invite them to coffee or something to keep building that rapport up and getting to know them better and seeing if they're actually interested in becoming involved as a member or going through the pledging process. I'm sorry. And another good way of digital connection is also having a website. Yes, while a website can help reach a larger audience, it can also help provide people with more information about who you are. It's more customizable because it showcases everything that is great about your chapter and gives people a lasting impression of what they when they look you up. While making a website seems a little bit more scary than creating a social media account, trust that there's a tons of platforms out there that can make creating a website way easier. There's Weebly, Wix, Yola, Squarespace, and a lot more out there. But overall, on the virtual standpoint, just make sure that you are always updating both of them, so you're creating a significant digital footprint and people can start noticing you. And overall, just remember that social media really plays a part in promoting you when you can do that in person. But straying away from virtual connections, there are also ways you can connect with people physically and can get your name out there, starting with student activities and within fraternity and sorority life. Not only are there staff there that can help build that bridge between you and potentials, they probably have seen a ton of recruitments and could give you pointers on what's most effective in terms of gaining an audience on campus. And then we have the School of Business and your faculty advisor are also good resources because they have insight into the demographic you want to recruit. And then finally, look at people who partake in similar clubs or organizations as you. If you have a marketing or accounting club on campus, don't be afraid to follow them on social media or come by one of their meetings at the start of the semester and try building a relationship with them. You can even collaborate with them if you wanted to. If you both can bring in an audience that would both fit your demographic, that's where just going to be a collaborative event with. So overall, establishing connections is so important before going into your recruitment period, as you are getting the message out ahead of time and gaining those interests while also expanding your network. So this will help decrease the pressure and stress of trying to make connections within a short week span of time, because recruitment isn't just a week. Recruitment is a 24/7 thing that starts as soon as you put those letters on, because you're not only representing yourself, but something bigger. Delta Sigma Phi. So the more you are representing your chapter well, the more people take interest into you. And that leads into my next point, our next slide, and that is our next slide. One more back, please. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it is only going forward and not backwards. There we are.
There you go. Awesome. Perfect. Very good. So looking ahead, so now that you're aware of how to establish some connections, it's also a good time to start planning schedule-wise on what recruitment will look like this semester. So for starters, make sure that you're getting those spots at those institution events, like such as your activity or involvement fairs or your recruitment workshops, or any big event that you can sign up for that allows you to meet people and get your name out there. Next is looking at those agendas and making sure everything is planned and communicated. Notify brothers within the chapter of those important events so that they can plan accordingly, or along with that, make sure that your rooms are reserved. If your institution requires it, make sure that your events are approved ahead of time for if you're booking rooms and stuff like that, because nothing sucks more than having a great idea already and you can't even do it. So make sure everything's solidified and planned out and ready to go. And finally, make sure you have your marketing material prepared. Are your flyers made? Have they been approved for posting? Do you know where you're going to plan to post them at? Are your business cards ready? Are they accurate with information on there, all accurate information? Or do you have display cases or bulletin boards updated with your chapter's information and contact? And if you haven't done so already, look to see how your recruitment shirts are coming along, how the design's coming along, what do you plan to do for that and what's the process like and stuff. So it may seem like a lot beforehand, but just remember that this can make things run smoother once you actually start playing your playing period for recruitment. And that's on to Sarah with our prepping for recruitment.
Yeah, sorry for the earlier technical difficulties, everyone. I don't even know why, but we're going to continue on to prepping for the recruitment period. So Leisha expressed, what the things you need to start thinking about, right? What kind of mindset you need to be in, what are your resources, how can we get started? So now as we're getting to that recruitment period, maybe it's 2 to 3 weeks prior to your pledging ceremony, your initiation, and the start of your program. How are we going to best prep for this? So moving forward, marketing your chapter. So as you can see on the right-hand side, a good example of tabling and recruiting yourself well, and as opposed to a bad representation of tabling and showing yourself as an organization. So oftentimes your institutions are going to have things very similar to these outlets for organizations such as yourselves to get in front of student bodies and recruit. Tell people who you are, what you're doing, and what it means to be a part of Delta Sigma Pi, because people are going to see those letters and not really understand it. They're just going to think you're another Greek organization. So again, tabling on campus and handing out merch is going to be essential for marketing your chapter. In that good best practice page picture, as you can see, as you notice, people are standing not behind the table. There's a nice board, maybe some handouts, a laptop, different things that you're able to then just use and do from that. But then if you look on the other end here, you can see that there is also the marketing of people behind the table, right? So that's important, because also something to note is that through this, you shouldn't be behind the table, right? You should be in front of people, telling people about this type of organization, because no one's going to approach you. You're definitely going to want to make sure you are approaching them. Speaking in classes, fraternity and sorority life student activity events, or even emails, activity fairs, career services, school of business emails, or even chapter events such as a Meet the Brothers, community service event, professional event. Those sorts of things are all going to be crucial in making sure not only are you putting your best foot forward, but you're showing people this is the type of organization we are, and these are all the different types of components that we are a part of. So again, social media posting is crucial and essential. Making sure that not only you're using your letters and your chapter name and your school name, but also your school's hashtags. Okay, that's so important, because if maybe the incoming freshman class has something going on, or if you can see that, oh, they have freshmen 2026. I don't know what year we're at now. Gosh, I feel old sometimes hearing the new years that are coming in with freshmen. But whatever those trends are with your school, make sure you're mimicking those and including those on your marketing campaigns. But again, these are all going to be things that you can see through outlets like your student activities office, fraternity sorority life, those sorts of things. But we're going to move on here to questions to ask yourself while recruiting. Number one, who is your audience? Where can we find our target audience? And are we reaching everyone who fits the profile? of an ideal member, what's the catch, and what attention is currently on us as an organization. So again, this is so important because if you don't know your audience, then you're more likely than not recruiting the right people. So again, it's crucial to understand, hey, this is our audience. This is what we're trying to gain. Professional majors, business majors who are studying XYZ. If you don't know where your qualified majors are on the hub, feel free to check those out on the dashboard. And if you go 2, 3 tabs over, there's one that says qualified programs. And those are all the programs that you as a chapter are able to recruit. And maybe some people on that list may surprise you. You don't realize you can recruit that fashion merchandising major or that aviation management major or whatever is unique to your school. So make sure you know your audience, know exactly who you can recruit and where they're at. The product and service, right? We learn about this in school. Do we have any set expectations as a chapter? Are we being upfront with our expectations? Are we telling potential members what is required of the Pledge Education program? Benefits of Delta Sigma Pi. I mean, everybody in this virtual room, including myself and including Leisha, joined this organization for a reason. So finding that reason and really honing down on this is what this organization means to me is going to help other people discover what their why factor is and why an organization like ours is not one to pass up. So again, knowing exactly what you're selling, okay, and what this organization can give you, professional development, maybe some service opportunities, the networks, the fact that once you're part of this organization, you are a part of it for the remainder of, 5, 6, 7 years, 50 years down the line, okay? So, that's a good talking point. And again, a good idea to make sure everyone in your chapter understands these expectations and can talk freely and openly about the program and the chapter. And that carries on into the message. What is our story? What do we value? And how are we spreading the message about what we are as a chapter? This is so important because if I just see the senior vice president sitting behind the table, maybe not engaging any students saying, oh, I'm a part of Delta Sigma Pi. And then maybe that person, once you talk to them, says, oh, but we're this great chapter. We're so together. We're bonded. It's like a brotherhood. But then there's just one person there. And you don't see any other person in sight. That sends a message more so than anything you are going to say to that person, because perception really is reality, right? People are going to see what you're saying, but then they're going to try to equate it to what they are experiencing. Do they see your chapter around? Are you having frequent campus events or touch points in your campus community? If maybe you're answering no to any of those questions, maybe you want to start implementing some of those things. So really think about it from an outsider's perspective. What message do we give off, or do we even give off a message? And then we're going to try to go to the next slide. Okay, cool. So a couple other questions to ask. Experience. What experience does our chapter provide? How are your brothers acting, and what are they saying about Delta Sigma Pi? Again, something with this. Your experience is going to be crucial, and it's going to help other people realize the good and the bad and everything that could be within a chapter. Okay, so if you're trying to really show people that, yes, we help develop you as a professional, these are some of the things that we do to, accomplish that. Don't just, say, oh, well, we're award winning and we do professional development and this and that. Like, definitely back up your word and show the experiences that your brothers have had. And again, show that, again, kind of like what I was saying, with one person at the table versus a group of people that you're able to see in the chapter, that sends a message. And if your brothers are acting excited and they're all having a good time, other people are going to rub off on that and see an organization of people that not only are like-minded business individuals, but they get along. They want to be together all the time. And that rubs off on people saying, well, I want to be a part of that. So really providing people an experience. Next, initiative. How are we following up with potential pledges and attendees? Are we intentional with our events and media so that they work in our favor? Kind of how Leisha was, segmenting out with all the different reach outs that you can make and all the different things you're able to do and resources you have. Being intentional is so important because, again, if you meet a bunch of people at your organization fair and then you never talk to them again and then expect them to pledge, it may not work out in your favor. So really understanding, like, hey, if you recruited me at a table, make sure you get my name, my major, and some contact information like my phone number and email. so that you can follow up with me saying, hey, Sarah, I met you at this table. I'd love to, follow up with you and invite you to our next community service event or our next professional development event. And then from there, you can blossom a relationship with this person and really get to show them and highlight all the different parts of your chapter. So again, be intentional and have an initiative on, okay, what is next? We get the names, but what is next? Technology. So do you have a good mix of in-person and online visibility? And how are we branding ourselves? What does our digital footprint look like? If you all check out your chapter website, which any of you can do, if you go on the DSP website and you look at our chapter locator, we have your email, but not only that, we have your website. And if you have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of those things, and if you click on all those, that is directly what is on our national website when they look at your chapter. If it is 10 years old and never used, maybe consider revising that, revamping it, because again, that is only a direct reflection of you as a chapter, one that has either a really well put together website that has accurate information and good contacts and a good representation of who you are now, or it's going to be outdated, and that's going to send a message too. So making sure that we look at those digital fronts and we're proud of what we see. And then, again, measurement. How are we keeping track of the connections we make and the attendees? This kind of reverted back to the experience and initiative portion I just said, but having a sheet, please, please, please have a way to document who you're talking to, because more likely than not, even if they don't end up pledging, you still have that contact that you can go back to. Maybe you recruited me and I said, this term's not a good term, but reach back out to me in the spring. You still have my contact info and you can do that. And that's good marketing too, to follow up and say, hey, would this term be a better time for you? So again, something we oftentimes recommend, have a sheet at a table, but if you're worried about maybe if something's not legible enough and you don't want to miss a letter or a name or a number, have a Google form or something very easy to set up that you could have at the table, just so that people can input their information. And it's like signing up for a mailing list. They can hear all the information about you still. So then we're going to go on into the after recruitment period as you already finish up your preparations.
Yes. Now that recruitment is over, and you have started your pledge program, what can you do now? How can you set yourself and your chapter up for success for the following term? So let's look at some best practices for how the chapter can best prepare for the next recruitment season. Awesome. So the first thing is make your presence known on campus. Like we've been saying before, recruitment is 24/7 and all year long. Staying consistent is key, making sure that your chapter is put on those high quality events or activities that can show potential interest that you do what you advertise. So you put on a lot of great professional events. Okay, have a campus-wide event so you can see, so people can see, how you're promoting yourself in the chapter and stuff like that. Especially if you are putting on more events to more than just chapter members. Have your officers collaborate and create big events that are campus-wide. So not only are you advertising who Dutch Summit Pi is, but you're also recruiting potentials who are seeing what you're doing for more than just a business school. And then we have plan for your next recruitment. Now that recruitment period has been concluded, how can you make your next one better? Ask your brothers, what can be improved on? What can be changed and to make your recruitment more impactful and successful? And as you're asking your brothers, maybe ask the pledges too. They went through the entire process just recently and could probably give you helpful advice, just from the recruitment standpoint. And overall, just ensure that once recruitment has ended, that the chapter is still continuously putting their best foot forward and consistently working to promote themselves. How can you better promote yourself to people? How can you best represent Delta Pi in your letters? And so now that I've gained the best way to prepare for your next term, I will pass it off to Sarah to share our recruiting resources.
Good to hear from me again. Okay, so on the screen, we got a lot of different recruiting resources out there, and maybe some that you don't even realize that we got. So everything from, hey, these are our recruitment goals, these are our recruitment plans. And if you haven't already checked out the website, we have collegiate chapter senior vice president pages, which is again going to be the main place to find a lot of recruiting resources. But again, something I think you'll hear us say a lot during this recruitment series is, yes, it is the duties of the senior vice president to see to it that this happens, but everybody in the chapter should have a role. So pull up these guides, make it a point during that time to really go over through your chapter what is working for us, who can do what, we have classroom talks, we have marketing like we established, we have other connections we could be making. Let's divide and conquer. So again, recruiting resources, we got that guide. We have recruitment ideas. So if maybe you don't feel like you have a lot of ideas for you, we have plentiful resources for that. A best practices guide. So, obviously, yes, webinars like these are best practices, and we're only going to share the good stuff with you so that you feel ready and equipped to do recruiting. But we have those guides in place to give you a refresher also. Talking points during recruitment, marketing and communication templates, and also recruitment schedule and calendar examples, right? Those are all going to be there for you to help prepare you and get you started. Maybe you don't feel like you're a chapter that fully, takes advantage of everything with, recruitment, and you feel like we can improve this. This is a good starting point, and you can just build off of this and make it your own. Please copy and steal everything in these resources because we want to see you succeed through these initiatives in the spring term. I'm going to continue on here. Perfect. So yeah, a couple other things that we have on there, a communication template. So if you look over to the left-hand side of this presentation, everything from event invitations to even how we can use it in action. Because like I was saying earlier with that initiative and being intentional, if you take all of your recruits and you take all those people and you just put them in one blast email and just send it off, that looks a little unprofessional, and maybe it would get the job done quicker, but you're losing that personal touch, and everyone's going to feel like they're just a number on a list. They were just another name. If you go the extra mile and say, hey, Sarah, met you at the organization fair, it was awesome to meet you, I'd like to invite you to XYZ. So we give you that template to play around with, invite them to whatever you're having next, and continue to engage them until you're ready to offer them to be a pledge. In addition to that, you can see it in action so that you kind of understand what we're trying to display with these templates. And then on the right-hand side, this is the recruitment follow-up timeline. So everything from when the recruit shows interest all the way down to pledging ceremony, like what should happen in between there. So of course, sending thank you and invitation emails, such as the communication template on our left, sending reminders and thank you texts or emails. Again, just expressing that we're really excited. We're really excited you're interested, and we want to make this not only the most comfortable environment for you, but welcoming to hopefully you becoming a pledge. So feel free to check these things out if you'd like to screenshot these. However, the full versions are going to be in those recruitment resources. And then lastly, kind of like Leisha was alluding to, so, different recruitment flyers, recruitment calendars, we have these for you. If you maybe are puzzled on how to make recruitment enticing and exciting, think back to your why reason. What were you hoping to join? Oftentimes when we're on the road, I know Leisha and I both recommend that showing people what you are about. Yes, you are a professional business organization, but you do a lot of other things. You do social things, you do things as a chapter, and you do things for service, and a little bit of everything else in between, right? Show them a little bit of everything you do. And maybe you have a community service event or a professional event during your recruitment. You have an opportunity for alumni to come back and share their experiences in the chapter. You can even invite them to a chapter. Of course, there's opening and closing things that they're not permitted to see and be at, but otherwise, none of that stuff is, off access, to see what a day in the day looks like for a brother of this organization. So again, keeping these things in mind and really planning it out and even plotting it out like this and making sure everyone feels confident with, with doing this. Because again, if you have those professional and service events, you can get those for credit too, like for CMP, for everything. So really take advantage of those opportunities and make sure again that you are putting your best foot forward and you're showing people all the areas of your chapter. So feel free to check these out for a second and think of any questions that you have. But yeah, this does conclude our webinar for just recruitment prep. So we are open to answering any and all questions that you have at this moment. I know, just speaking from experience with our other conversation we had last week, a lot of facilitated discussion on your chapters, what your chapter is struggling with, your fine-tuned details. Please use this as a resource to do so. I'm sure a lot of people will find value in sharing maybe some ideas that have worked out for you or some challenges that maybe you similarly face. So I'd love to turn it over to you all, the audience, to see what would we like to talk about? What do we have a question on?
Hi, so my chapter is looking to improve how we train our brothers for recruitment, like how we would prepare them to be able to table and how they would be able to talk in the classes. Do you have any ideas on how to prepare them for those things before going into it?
I can
Sure.
start off.
Alicia, do you want to take it away? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got it. Yeah. So I think the best practice for people who aren't really comfortable with public speaking is, of course, either kind of give them a script to follow through and, like, kind of some key points to hit during their, classroom visits or, times where they are speaking out to the public and stuff. Or if you want, make sure that they're at their best to go, have them doing it during chapter, practice in front of the members. And so they can, like, give good advice or, help them kind of build themselves, their confidence up for talking in front of people. I think giving them the other resources like the script and stuff like that is a good way to kind of get their best foot forward. And then if they kind of want to have like more of a structured thing, like, make a PowerPoint if they wanted to, have like PowerPoints for them to just, point off saying this is all our fun things that we've done so far and all those cool things. I don't know if Sarah has like, more to follow up with that with and stuff.
Yeah, I think just for the training aspect, I think like any class or like anything we're trying to learn, make it fun. It's okay for it to not be this dry, boring meeting. I've seen chapters really make the most of it and order a pizza, really get into the groove of the mindset of, okay, this is what recruiting is. Some chapters even have fun with it and they theme their recruitments, right? Like as appropriate, do it, right? I would say, again, another best practice is going to be just making sure that all the information is clear and concise across everybody, because everyone should be able to talk about your chapter for like 30 seconds. And everyone should understand the parameters of the pledge education program, which there aren't a lot, right? They should be attending chapter meetings. They should be attending all their pledge education program meetings and doing the modules associated with them. They have, up to the limited hour of activity, right? And everything that's an expectation of brothers is also an expectation of pledges, within that time constraint. So again, pledge initiation fees, be transparent and understand what your chapter has for those, right? Those are going to be key things. And then from there, branching off. So really using your chapter members' area of expertise. So like, I know I was in marketing when I was in school, and for recruiting, we always divided up. And, the very talkative people would go do the classroom talks, but maybe the not so talkative people that just could write the best email started reaching out to those faculty members, asking for recommendations. And then the artsy people started to put up posters. They started to, do the behind the scenes, like the social media, the takeovers, just letting their creative outlets go wild. So I really do think with a little bit more timing and preparation, everyone can be an asset to the recruiting team. I think it's just using that sociable platform during this meeting, with the pizza and the social activity to just understand where everyone's at and make people aware that while we do have these baseline expectations, this is something that everybody needs to do. So I don't know if that answered your question, Kristen, or if you would like more, but
It did, thank you.
okay, wonderful. Great. Any other questions that we got?
Yeah. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
You're good.
I'm kind of, my chapter's kind of having a bit of the same, I don't want to call it issue, but kind of we're talking about the same thing as Kristen's chapter, in terms of we feel that our members could use a little bit of training or at least some practice before going into recruitment. But for us, it's less about, our events, like meet the chapter, professional event, and more about the interview process. Because I don't know, I feel it's like collegiates, we have plenty of experience going into an interview and being the interviewee, but not necessarily the interviewer. So that's kind of what we're trying to do right now, is sort of develop like, okay, how can we do this effectively? So if one of our members decides to volunteer to conduct an interview, they can do it effectively. So do you have any advice in terms of how to go about that, or anything we should know?
Yeah, I think I'll take this one, Leisha, to begin, and then please add on. But just based on the schools that I've seen, it really can ebb and flow. People's interview process, what they decide they'd like to do. And I will say some chapters really overcomplicate it, like full transparency. I look at some of these processes for interviews and intake, and this is how we decide if someone's worthy enough. And it kind of makes me shake my head a little because, we are an organization that is so open and, diverse, and we allow so many people in this. And then we have all these parameters in place to kind of like weed them out. So, it can be challenging, right? Especially you're from IOTA, Anna. So you get a lot of people interested. You have a large chapter, right? So, that can be hard to navigate. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is really simplify it. Maybe take only up to a certain amount, like have a capacity, like, okay, our applications are open. We're only accepting this many applications. And then we'll go from there, just so it doesn't become excessive. And then also just really think about what the chapter values. I think it goes back to that, like, what does our organization value? Read the purpose. If you feel like you're doing a lot of interviews that feel like you're just like interrogating, or you feel like it's just a lot of work, not only on your ends, but also planning and scheduling the times of all these individuals, it makes me wonder, like, oh, was there a better way to do this? Because again, I think in that case, simplicity is going to be your best bet, because this isn't a job interview. And, something I also will mention is, not every single person that is going to be recruited is going to be the perfect candidate from that interview table, and they shouldn't be, because if you're just recruiting the best of the best people that you think are the best of the best, then you're just going to recruit more people like yourselves and not get that diversity and not get the different mindsets, right? So I think if you approach it that way, like, hey, we are all a work in progress. Like, I'll use my example, and I know it's kind of a long answer, but I was like the most untraditional recruit. I phone interviewed the day before pledging ceremony, got in, they said, show up. And I was like, what? So, it was a lot. And to this day, I don't even know, looking back, if I was the perfect candidate in most of these chapters' eyes, right? I was new to the School of Business, didn't know anyone, had no connections, resume wasn't the best, nothing was amazing looking, but through this organization, I grew tremendously. And so I think if you provide that outlet to a lot of other people and look at it more as that, like that in that lens, rather than we just need the best of the best, that might help you a bunch. And then just setting parameters for how much you really can intake. Because again, I've met plenty chapters that are 150 people, 200 people, and they lose track of what it means to be in a chapter. So I would just say, condense it down, make the interview process more of a conversation of what do you want to bring to this chapter and what entices you the most and where do you want to start? We're going to let you in. What type of opportunities do you want to take on and improve our chapter through while growing yourself? Does that help, Anna? I know Talisha probably has also some thoughts, and I called you Talisha. That's so weird. It's just Leisha. But Leisha, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and I think of such a great question. And just, if your chapter is experiencing kind of struggles with the whole interview process, just know that interviews aren't really necessary for the recruitment process, and that they should be, like a mandatory thing for all chapters. And if you're feeling like, interviews aren't really like the strong suit right now for the members, I guess the question is, what do you hope to gain from the interviews? Is that question.
Well, I don't know. That's kind of the hard thing. And that's kind of brings up my point where it's like, I'm 21 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing. So, but I guess it's kind of like, it's hard to get a sense because Sarah brought up a really good point. She's like coming in like, I'm new to School of Business. I didn't have the connections. And I think that's kind of a point sometimes we lose a little bit. It's just, people come and they join DSP to grow as a professional. And that's kind of an investment we're making. So it's kind of looking for like, is this person someone who's going to be involved and active within the chapter, like in terms of how can I identify that, and how can we help them grow, essentially? And so it's kind of like that give and take. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's perfect, perfect. And yeah, like Sarah said before, if you want to make it more like a conversation, that's the point of the whole recruiting process. Kind of get to know that person more as a person, why do they hope to, join the Dust Empire, or what do you hope to bring to it? The interview shouldn't be like the sole purpose of what you like learn the most about the person, rather than all the events you put on during that recruitment period as you have like those informationals and stuff like that. It's a time for brothers and, recruits to get to know each other and what they hope to stand for and stuff. And so maybe if you want to spend more time, during your recruitment periods, like your other events, having like those small questions for brothers to ask people, throughout the day and say, oh, why do you want to be a member anyway? And stuff like that. It should be a deciding factor, but small conversational pieces to, get the conversation flowing, learn more about them. So interviews don't have to be the main thing for that. So
One
I
other
don't know,
thing
so
that I totally just thought of is having events strategically around the same times you all do things as a chapter. Have something during your normally scheduled chapter time. Maybe have it be an excuse chapter and instead everyone's, supporting this recruiting event, and if people end up, recruits, right, you're reaching out to them in theory. If you end up saying, hey, this is our time, we meet 7 o'clock, this is going to be what we're doing. And people say, oh, I got class, I have something, this doesn't work for me. That's like key indicator number one, that this person does not have time for you. They won't have time for you. And, of course, besides just like the pledge initiation fees and just the timing requirements, that's a great way to really be selective without being too selective. And if you have maybe your professional events every Thursday, or if you do a component on the weekend, even, that's a good testament to, number one, how much Delta Sigma Pi really is on their mind, but then number two, like, can they actually realistically show up to the things that we normally do? So that's another thought. But
and yeah, we have a suggestion in the comments too from Ken's. Thank you, thank you. He said we review applications as an exec team, but for offering the applicant an interview to hold less interviews. So that's a really good idea. I like that. And then Anna said, thank you, Anna. We had a voting committee this past semester to review all of our interviewers' notes to make them more standardized. Yeah, I've seen some chapters do more standardized things, like a little, like if they submit a resume and stuff like that, like small things to kind of get them in the mindset that this is a good recruit, and like, having the more personal conversations throughout recruits to learn more about them as a person and stuff. So I love that. Thank you guys.
we got another question. What is something chapters usually forget while preparing for recruitment? So to take this one off first, I think the first thing that people forget when preparing is just to be themselves. And I know that is such a cliche answer, but I will back it up. People think we got to be the best. And I'm going to use IOTA as an example because Anna just spoke. If I'm a part of the IOTA chapter, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's going to want to be a part of us. We have to put our best foot forward, and this is who we need to be, and we need to show them. And because of that, we've become so standardized. And so this is what we are, that people aren't seeing your personalities. They aren't seeing, the impact it's had on you. So it is okay to have fun while recruiting. It is okay to, have your own approach to talking to people and really make a connection more than anything. Because like a good professor of mine once told me, everything's a sales pitch if you think about it. Are you going to really sell someone something if you use the same copy and paste format? That's just something to think about. But I would say that just bringing your A game, bringing yourself, and then also just making sure that they get the input of other people and they really start to think about recommendations, because oftentimes people think the only way we can prepare for recruitment is by signing up for the org fair and making sure we got a poster board there. But I think it's so much more than that. You could reach out to your faculty connections, whether they're initiated brothers or not, and say, hey, could you provide us 1 or 2 names of people you've had in class that you would recommend to someone, someone in an organization like ours? And beyond that, using the people in your chapter, have a game out of it. I saw a chapter once do an incentive where whoever brought in and retained the most amount of people interested in the organization and ended up pledging, they got a campus bookstore gift card, which was enticing to everybody because books are expensive and everyone needs those. So I don't know, I think that is also another great way to, get everybody involved. If you're not on the marketing, if you're not going and doing the classroom talks or at the org fairs, you're still actively recruiting and talking to people and asking around. So a couple ideas there. Alicia, anything you got?
Oh yeah, for my visits, it's been a journey. I'm just kidding. But I think the most common mistake I've seen from chapters is that the people who do like leave recruiting put so much pressure on themselves and not utilizing all the resources available. You have your members there for a reason. So if you're seeing vice president who, overlooks the entire recruitment process, don't have them, feel like they have the entire pressure in the world to reach out to every recruit and, make sure that they're following up or, establishing those connections, stuff like that. You have so many members there to help you recruit. Like I said, for recruitment 24/7 all year round. So as you put those letters on, you're recruiting somebody, at least one person into the organization. And so, during your recruitment events, have everybody trying to make conversation with at least one member. And then if it makes it to make it a little bit easier, have an interest sheet, have recruits put their likes and dislikes. And at the next event, have those brothers who have those same likes and dislikes, have conversation with them, have them grab coffee together, kind of have that one person that's like that point of contact for them that they can relate the most to, kind of like a safe zone in a sense, that safe umbrella that they have the most in common with. That's like one thing. And then also it's like not getting things finished ahead of time, kind of, not planning things ahead of time for recruitment events. Like, they say, oh, it was put on an informational event or do this, but not really taking time to really strategize and make better events that could make, pull in more potential recruits. Like if you want to have a high-end professional event, okay, take more than a week just to plan that out, take 2 weeks if you can to have like, a really good professional speaker who can come out to you and speak to you. And then another week just to even promote the events, don't promote like the couple of days before, say, hey, just come out to our events, it's come on like tomorrow night, students and teachers have a busy schedule. And so if they can't make time all of a sudden just to come to an event. So making sure that you promote things ahead of time and then utilize all your members in your recruitment events and stuff. But thank you. Is there any
Great
other
question,
questions?
though. Any other questions?
So I don't know where we heard this from, but last semester we heard that interviewing was hazing and we were really confused about that. So we didn't do it this semester. We wanted to because we thought it set a good tone. I don't know where we heard that from though.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And I'll take this on, Alicia. So I know I Epsilon Upsilon, New Mexico, right? State? Yes. Okay. I visited you all about a year and a half ago. So I know this was something that did come up during our visit back then too. And I definitely think it's all about how you do it. Because again, within our policies and procedures, we don't set the tone for what you can and can't do for intake process and for, getting people from recruits to pledges. A lot of people do interviews, they do speed meets, they do meet the brothers, they do all these other things before they, do the voting on if this person will be invited to become a pledge or not. So I think the best practices, I will say, to ensure that it's not hazing. Again, we do this presentation at every chapter meeting. So if you all have had one of us come out, you've heard this, but brutality of a physical or mental nature that goes against the well-being, health and safety, or comfortability of the individual. Key point I said there was mental hazing. This isn't just fraternity laws. A lot of schools and also states have been strictening their laws around hazing. So, making sure it's a comfortable environment. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and having a conversation and having an interview with somebody. Where the problem does lie is when it becomes like an interrogation or you're asking questions that potential pledges may not be able to answer, or you're going through extreme lengths to find this ideal candidate where it's a 3-hour long interview process and there's all these components and you must pass with this score and they must do this and this and this. That's a lot, and that could be considered hazing. So I think there's definitely a good fine line between you having a conversation and having a traditional interview of what do you want to get out of this and what is something that would benefit you from being a part of our organization. All valid questions. I think when it really starts to stray is the really fine-tuned things that people aren't able to answer, and maybe that you put them under a really extreme or stressful situation, stress inducing really. So I think if you take it to that approach, you're golden. So that's what I would recommend, just making it as carefree and as possible and low stress. Leisha, anything that you want to add on to that?
Oh, that was perfect. Yes, second that one.
Oh, thanks. Okay, perfect. So, Kristen, more importantly, did that answer you?
That did completely. Because
Wonderful.
now I know what we did perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, and if you ever have, I should say this disclaimer, if you have ever any questions, about, is this okay? You're not going to get yelled at. Number one, we are here to have these facilitated discussions and to answer emails and inquiries day in and day out to help you. If we can prevent something from becoming a bad situation, we will, and we'll do it constructively. Okay. So if you want to even send us an email saying, hey, does this look okay? Is there anything in here you would update, or are we good to go to proceed with this? We love that, and we're more than happy to do that, and you will not be bothering us. So you can always reach out to us at consultants@dsp.org, or even our personal emails here in the Q&A section that you're seeing. So feel free to reach out. We do this all the time. Some people reach out to us from Big Little introductions, if it's an approved one, if it's okay. But we're more than happy to look at recruitment plans too. Wonderful.
Any other questions that anybody might have?
Let's see. I think this is the last one from me because Sarah already touched on this a lot in terms of safety and making people feel that they're welcome at our recruitment events. Because I know this was a discussion we had for our DEI roundtable event with our chapter. One of the things that we brought up is how can we make the chapter a better place for DE&I, or how can we make our chapter members feel welcome in the chapter? And a lot of what was brought up was recruitment. And some people kind of had the idea, and it was a little bit of a debate, like, what if we, because at voting chapter, we have a slide with their picture and their general summary of like who they are, how their interview went. And some people were saying like, well, what if we remove the picture, and what if we remove the name to being candidate number 1 or candidate number 2? So it's a little less unbiased. And there was a little bit of debate there because this past semester we did have a guy who interviewed and tried to pledge DSP, who kind of had a reputation for being very aggressive, I'll say, to a lot of the female members of our chapter. So that was a bit of a concern there. It's like, if we don't know who this person is, then we run that risk. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, or could build on that a little bit.
It's a good question. I'm going to say that I'm in favor of, I want to word this the right way. I think both are valid options. So if I say something here that your chapter does or does the opposite of, please don't take this as this must. I think that could be a good way to promote diversity within your chapter. I've seen chapter members have facilitated discussions with the picture still, but instead of it becoming this redundant conversation where you're making the same point. So let's use your example, Anna. Like, it's this guy that has made people uncomfortable, and people just keep harping on that, because that's something I've noticed even when I've been fortunate enough to be there during voting on pledges, is that oftentimes we got the candidate up, we got their name, and then we hear the same pros and the same cons reiterated by like 10 to 15 members until we come to a general consensus that we're saying the same thing, and then we vote and everyone's frustrated. So I think a good best practice I've seen, putting the candidate's name and picture up, and then taking 3 pros, 3 cons, and just, keeping tally of those. So not that we have to find 3 cons in somebody, but if they are there, we're documenting them, and we're allowing, for everyone to speak their piece, but it also condenses things and we don't have to reiterate the same information. I am in favor of removing the picture though, and the name. At the end of the day, does it matter? I think the only way it would matter is facial recognition and knowing who somebody is and being able to approach them and have that conversation. And you could say, oh, hey, I heard you were potentially going to pledge with us. Like, let me talk to you. Like, I think that's the only way I would fight that on, oh, well, you wouldn't know what they look like unless you've had them in class or you memorized the name. But at the end of the day, if people are qualified individuals, they're qualified individuals. So maybe try it out. I'd love to hear how that goes. Because again, that seems like a cool idea that maybe would expedite the process too. I don't know, thoughts on that, Leisha?
Yeah, I like that too. I really enjoy like the unconscious bias, the way that you're doing candidate number one and number two, but kind of like the issue that you're facing so far with that one individual, maybe do add names so that way, even if as you have like their pros and cons, like their actual information, people can recognize the name, saying, "Oh, I still know that person as an individual person," stuff like that. So here's our pros and cons of that person. If he is aggressive with people, female members and stuff like that, or female people and stuff. So I think having the name involved in that in your information list could help avoid that kind of that loophole and stuff. But yeah, may remove the name, removing the picture so that it's not much of of an image, but you just oh, that's their name and this is who they are and stuff. So kind of like an actual resume for like an interview and stuff like that. So that kind of thing.
No,
Yeah,
thank you guys. That helps a lot.
yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would also add to this, because I'm just sitting here thinking this is how I go. Also, one of our off-camera consultants just provided me a really great idea. Utilizing your campus resources. More likely than not, in today's day and age, you have an office of diversity, equity, inclusion, or a multicultural student center, or something along those lines. Use their input, take their input. They are professionals and they are going to know what's best in distinguishing, are we being diverse? Are we being accepting? Are we being equitable? Right? They could answer those questions, I think, more than Leisha and I could. I think we gave our good best foot forward of like, hey, this is what we do and we would try out. But ultimately, run those ideas past them and say, is this a good idea? Are we putting our best foot forward and making sure this is an equal opportunity to everybody? So that's a great point. Thank you, Jasmine, who's listening into this. And then, again, hopefully that helps Anna. I know University of Kansas shortly has an office. I don't know what it's called though.
Yeah, I do a small note for that as well. Also, speaking of the office, look at the other organizations you have on campus. I'm sure like multicultural organizations like, MPHC or, multicultural, like, other areas, and they might have, their own method for recruiting their individuals and, how they go about, bringing in people of different cultures or backgrounds and stuff like that. So maybe collaborate with them and gain like their point of view and, maybe mixing and matching what you guys do and stuff to kind of, improve both of the organizations. But yeah. Any other
Awesome.
questions anybody might have? I appreciate that.
Yeah. What else?
Well, while we do a moment of silence, I want to promote our next upcoming webinar, and that is utilizing your recruitment toolkit. I'll put the link down here below in the chat so you can all, register for that. But please, feel free to come out and learn more about how to prepare for recruitment, going into the new year and for your next term and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's going to be January 4th at 3 p.m. Eastern, same time as this one was. So hopefully convenient for you all. You'll be probably home on break. Feel free to hop on, spend some time with us if you have any additional questions, or if maybe you bring some conversations back from today and some other questions come up or thoughts. We would love to hear them. But one more sweep for any questions on anything.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna stop sharing here. And then